to consider.
He began to consider.
Kaurava, O son of the Kurus. Translation and purport by his translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. O son of the Kurus, when Brahma saw that in spite of the presence of sages of great potency, there was no sufficient increase in population, he seriously began to wonder how the population could be increased. So I'll go through the following text. It's 50 to 57. I'm finishing the chapter. Aho adbhutam etanme vyapratasyapi nityada nahyedhante prajanunam daivamatra vighadakam. Translation: Brahma thought to himself, alas, it is wonderful that in spite of my being scattered all over, there is still insufficient population throughout the universe. There is no other cause for this misfortune but destiny. Evam yukta kartastasya daivam chavikshatastada kasya rupam apudvedha yatkayam apichakshate. While he was thus absorbed in contemplation and was observing the supernatural power, two other forms were generated from his body. They are still celebrated as the body of Brahma. Purport: two bodies came out of the body of Brahma. One had a mustache and the other had swollen breasts. No one can explain the source of their manifestation, and therefore, until today, they are known as Kayam, or the body of Brahma, with no indication of the relationship as his son or daughter. Tabhyam rupa vibhagabhyam mithunam samapadyata. The two newly separated bodies united together in a sexual relationship. Yastu tatra puman sobhun manu swayam bhuva swarat striya sichatarupakya mahishyasya mahatmanaha. Out of them, the one who had the male form became known as the Manu named Swayambhuva, and the woman became known as Shatarupa, the queen of the great soul Manu. Tadamituna dharmena prajahidham babhuvire. Thereafter, by sex indulgence, they gradually increased generations of population one after another. Sachapi shatarupayam panchapatyanya yajijana. Okay. Panchapatyanyajijanat priyavrottanapadau tisraf kanyascha bharata akutir devahutischa prasutirita sattama. O son of Bharat, in due course of time, he, Manu, begot in Shatarupa 5 children, 2 sons, Priyavrata and Uttanapad, and 3 daughters, Akuti, Devahuti, and Prasuti. Akutim ruchaye bhradat karamayatu madhyamam dakshayadat prasuting cha yata puritam jagat. The father Manu handed over his first daughter, Akuti, to the sage Ruchi, the middle daughter, Devahuti, to the sage Kardama, and the youngest, Prasuti, to Daksha. From them all the world filled with population. Purport: the history of the creation of the population of the universe is given herewith. Brahma is the original living creature in the universe from whom were generated the Manu Swayambhuva and his wife Shatarupa. From Manu, 2 sons and 3 daughters were born, and from them all the population in different planets has sprung up until now. Therefore, Brahma is known as the grandfather of everyone, and the personality of Godhead, being the father Brahma, is known as the great-grandfather of all living beings. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 11, text 39, as follows. Vayoryamo varuna shashanka prajapatistvam prapita mahascha namo namaste stu sahasrakritva namo namaste stu sahasrakritva punashcha bhuyopi namo namaste. You are the Lord of Air, the Supreme Justice Yama, the fire, and the Lord of Rains. You are the moon, and you are the great-grandfather. Therefore I offer my respectful obeisances unto you again and again. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport to the 3rd canto, 12th chapter, the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Creation of the Kumars and Others. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshura Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Karamahyam Darati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Atahpara Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shivashan Kanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dhinabandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Ratha Kanta Namostite Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Varishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripasundu Yevacha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Parishtaya Putale Srimate Bhaktivikasa Swaminiti Namane Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Parishtaya Putale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Sarasvati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavari Paschatya Reshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Virinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we see here, picking up from where Chandan had left off, Chandan Acharya Prabhu was speaking extensively about acting in action in accordance with one's position. We see that in text 49, or just up until now, Lord Brahma, of course, upon finding himself attracted to his daughter and then being politely called out by the sages, he gave up this body and then, of course, assumed one that was suitable for carrying out or suitable for being engaged with the matter of further creation, as it says, where sex life, of course, is not forbidden. So I wanted to cover points in relation to that. So specifically this action in accordance with one's position and not trying to carry out that which is outside of that, of course. We see in the purport for 49, this is going back, in his former body, which was transcendental, affection for sex life was forbidden, and Brahma therefore had to accept another body to allow himself to be connected with sex. He thus engaged himself in the matter of creation, his former body transformed into fog, as previously described. So we see a difference here. Of course, Brahma had taken this on solely for the sake of being able to carry out his duty and not just for the sake of being able to engage in sense gratification. So this performance of duty is heavily being emphasized in this chapter and carrying it out with proper consciousness. And one of the understandings that we get also is that, I want to read actually a purport in relation to that. You can pull up Bhagavad Gita 18, text 47. Shreyan swadharma viguna paradharmat swanushtithat swabhava niyatam karma kurvan napnoti kilibisham. It is better to engage in one's own occupation, even though one may perform it imperfectly, than to accept another's occupation and perform it perfectly. Duties prescribed according to one's nature are never affected. Are never affected by sinful reactions. And the purport reads, one's occupational duty is prescribed in Bhagavad Gita. Excuse me, can I get some water? Yeah, I'm sorry. As already discussed in previous verses, the duties of Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra are prescribed according to their particular modes of nature. One should not imitate another's duty. A man who is by nature attracted to the kind of work done by Shudra should not artificially claim to be a Brahmana, although he may have been born into a Brahmin family. In this way, one should work according to his own nature. No work is abominable if performed in the service of the Supreme Lord. The occupational duty of a Brahmana is certainly in the mode of goodness, but if a person is not by nature in the mode of goodness, he should not imitate the occupational duty of a Brahmana. For a Kshatriya or administrator, there are so many abominable things. A Kshatriya has to be violent to kill his enemies, and sometimes a Kshatriya has to tell lies for the sake of diplomacy. Such violence and duplicity accompany political affairs, but a Kshatriya is not supposed to give up his occupational duty and try to perform the duties of a Brahmana. So here we see the divisions of varnas are broken down here, and the understanding, however, is that Vaishnava is above these different classifications, these different swadharmas, and it's because of the fact that the sole concern of the Vaishnava is to please Krishna. And until one has risen to that platform in their unbodily conception of life, they should follow their nature so that they can, of course, come to that platform. For Krishna, the Vaishnava will do anything, will accept anything. This was specifically seen at one Varnashram class that we had. We were discussing about it's not such a straightforward thing, of course, seeing how we're going to implement all these different roles into modern day society with people who have had no conception of living according to their nature, and then carrying out these different tasks in such a systematic way. But in this relation, the Vishnu Chitra Prabhu had mentioned how the Pandavas, when they went into hiding from the Kauravas, we saw that they assumed all these different positions and occupations that are not directly at all actually in line with their role. I mean, with their natures. So Arjuna was, I think he was a dance teacher, as you had described. I believe it was Bhima or Bhishma who was Bhima. He was a cook, and they went on like this for years, hiding. And 1 year? Years? No, it wasn't years. Okay, forgive me for misquoting. Glad you're here to correct that. But even so, most people can't go on doing something against their nature for that period of time. And this stands to show essentially that the Vaishnava can accept roles and duties outside of their particular nature, because there's this service attitude to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And you don't see that with people who are so completely and totally attached to their bodily conception of life and their position that they might have as such. Even if one might be, for example, a Brahmana, a Kshatriya, a Vaishya, or a Shudra. But the beauty of the system is that it can still elevate one outside of that or beyond that nature that they might have. So you don't have to pull this up. I'll read this. This is purport to Bhagavad Gita, text 31. It speaks further on these specific duties and getting liberation beyond this. So there's two kinds of swadharmas, or specific duties. As long as one is not liberated, one has to perform the duties of a particular body in accordance with the religious principles in order to achieve liberation. When one is liberated, one's swadharma, or specific duty, becomes spiritual and is not in the material bodily concept. In the bodily concept of life, there are specific duties for the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas respectively, and such duties are unavoidable. Swadharma is ordained by the Lord, and this will be clarified in the 4th chapter. On the bodily plane, Swadharma is called Varnashram Dharma, or man's stepping stone for spiritual understanding. Human civilization begins from the stage of Varnashram Dharma, or specific duties, in terms of the specific modes of nature of the body obtained. So, again, we see, we have the basic understanding, of course, is that we take these different bodies, we achieve a nose and eyes, tongue, and different tastes of Maya according to these our acquired nature by result of interacting with the material nature since time immemorial. So whether we're in the body of an animal or in the body of a human, this principle, of course, still applies. And this, of course, we hear so many times Prabhupada has made the point that the modern civilization, most people are just on that platform of being an animal because there's no conception or ability to act beyond the platform of the senses and actually rise above material nature. So it's for this reason, of course, that Prabhupada made the point, this emphasis on Varnashram Dharma. And even though it's a material arrangement, it's a material arrangement that can at least help one attain or regain that spiritual position. And it's not just it's not, of course, beneficial just for people within. It's beneficial for everybody. So in this connection, Swayambhuva Manu and Kardama Muni, as described, Devahuti is the daughter who he gives to Kardama Muni. They speak on this specifically Varnashram, but specifically on the roles of Brahmanas and Kshatriyas. This comes a little bit later in the third canto. I myself just read it just recently, not too long ago. But the specific roles and the importance of such and how they support each other are described. You can pull up Canto 3, Chapter 21, Text 50. So he reads, this is Kardama Muni speaking to Swayambhuva Manu. Upon him arriving at his hermitage, he says, "The tour you have undertaken, O Lord, is surely intended to protect the virtuous and kill the demons, since you embody the protecting energy of Sri Hari." Excuse me, you can go on to the next text. You assume, when necessary, the part of the sun god, the moon god, Agni, the god of fire, Indra, the lord of paradise, Vayu, the wind god, Yama, the god of punishment, Dharma, the god of piety, and Varuna, the god presiding over the waters, all obeisances to you who are none other than Lord Vishnu. You can keep going. If you did not mount your victorious jeweled chariot, whose mere presence threatens culprits, if you did not produce fierce sounds by the twanging of your bow, and if you did not roam around the world like the brilliant sun, leading a huge army whose trampling feet cause the globe of the earth to tremble, then all the moral laws governing the varnas and ashrams created by the Lord himself would be broken by the rogues and rascals. So I want you to go, if you can, to this. See, the purport for 52, text 52. Okay, it's right there, yeah. So, it is the duty of a responsible king to protect the social and spiritual orders in human society. The spiritual orders are divided into 4 ashrams: brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. And the social orders, according to work and qualification, are made up of the brahmanas, the kshatriyas, the vaishyas, and the shudras. These social orders, according to the different grades of work and qualification, are described in Bhagavad Gita. Unfortunately, for want of proper protection by responsible kings, the system of social and spiritual orders has now become a hereditary caste system. But this is not the actual system. Human society means that society which is making progress towards spiritual realization. The most advanced human society was known as Arya. Arya refers to those who are advancing. So the question is, which society is actually advancing? Advancement does not mean creating material necessities, quote unquote, unnecessarily, and thus wasting human energy and aggravation over so-called material comforts. Real advancement is advancement toward spiritual realization. And the community which acted towards this end was known as the Aryan civilization. The intelligent men, the brahmanas, as exemplified by Kardama Muni, were engaged in advancing the spiritual cause, and the kshatriyas, like Emperor Swayambhuva, used to rule the country and ensure that all facilities for spiritual realization were nicely provided. So, this is the position and the role, the duty of the kshatriya. Of course, to protect, but to facilitate and give this facility to the Brahmanas especially, who lead the civilization in spiritual realization. It reads on further, it is the duty of the king to travel all over the country and see that everything is in order. Indian civilization, on the basis of the four varnas and ashrams, deteriorated because of her dependence on foreigners or those who do not follow the civilization of varnashram. Thus, the varnashram system has now degraded into the caste system. So there's 2 points I wanted to make here. One is that whether we're inside or outside the varnashram system, of course, we're still in the material world, so we're conditioned. But as I previously said, at least inside of the varnashram system, you have the opportunity to get out of the clutches of material nature. Another nice point that's made a little bit later in the second paragraph of the purport is, let me see, if you could scroll down. It's a little bit of a long purport. Yeah, the institution of four varnas and four ashrams is confirmed herewith to be Bhagavad Rachita, or means designed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Bhagavad Gita, this is also confirmed. Chaturvarnyam maya sarstam. The Lord says that the institution of four varnas and four ashrams is created by me. Anything created by the Lord cannot be closed or covered. The divisions of varnas and ashrams will continue to exist either in their original form or in their degraded form, because they are created by the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they cannot be extinguished. They are like the sun, a creation of God, and therefore will remain. Either covered by clouds or in a clear sky, the sun will continue to exist. Similarly, when the varnashram system becomes degraded, it appears as a hereditary caste system. But in every society, there is an intelligent class of men, a martial class, a mercantile class, and a laborer class. When they are regulated for cooperation among communities, according to the Vedic principles, then there is peace and spiritual advancement. But when there is hatred and malpractice and mutual mistrust in the caste system, the whole system becomes degraded, and as stated herein, it creates a deplorable state. At the present moment, the entire world is in this deplorable condition because of giving rights to so many interests. This is due to the degradation of the four castes of varnas and ashrams. So we see that the higher the varna, the higher one's duties and responsibilities that they also have as well. And by neglect of this, especially if one has the role, if one is a brahmana and they misuse their position. Well, I'll just put it this way: we see that it was described, I believe, in the first canto, how this degradation of society started, of course, with the cursing of, I believe it was Maharaj Parikshit, by the son of a sage he offended. I don't remember his name specifically, but it's a top-down degradation. It starts from the brahmanas and then it follows and it trickles down this way. And it's not just that one person is degraded who might be neglectful of their responsibility, but everybody as a result has to also suffer on the back end. So these brahmanas have the topmost responsibility, and it's, of course, for this reason that they're to be given proper regard. In response to this, Manu, Swayambhuva Manu, this is, of course, all Karma Muni, speaking in glorification of the Kshatriyas and in glorification of Swayambhuva Manu. And in response to this, Swayambhuva Manu speaks on the role of the Brahmanas. If you pull up Canto 3, Chapter 22, Text 2. And he replies that Manu replied, to expand himself in Vedic knowledge, Lord Brahma, the personified Veda, from his face created you, the Brahmanas, who are full of austerity, knowledge, and mystic power, and are averse to sense gratification. Text 3. For the protection of the Brahmanas, the thousand-legged Supreme Being created us, the Kshatriyas, from his 1,000 arms. Hence, the Brahmanas are said to be his heart, and the Kshatriyas his arms. Text 4. That is why the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas protect each other as well as themselves, and the Lord himself, who is both the cause and effect and is yet immutable, protects them through each other. Now, I'm going to apologize. I know this is heavy on text I'm reading from, but I did want to read the purport to text 2 because it's further hammering home this point. Specifically in relation to the Brahmanas, the purpose of the Vedas is to propagate the transcendental knowledge of the absolute truth. The Brahmanas were created from the mouth of the Supreme Person, and therefore they are meant to spread the knowledge of the Vedas in order to spread the glories of the Lord. In Bhagavad Gita, also Lord Krishna says that all the Vedas are meant for understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is especially mentioned here, Yoga Yuktan Nalampatan, that Brahmanas are full of mystic power and are completely averse to sense gratification. Actually, there's two kinds of occupations. One occupation in the material world is sense gratification, and the other occupation, is spiritual activity, to satisfy the Lord by his glorification. Those who engage in sense gratification are called demons, and those who spread the glorification of the Lord or satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord are called demigods. It is specifically mentioned here that the Brahmanas are created from the face of the cosmic personality, or Virat Purusha. Similarly, the Kshatriyas are said to be created from his arms, the Vaishyas from his waist, and the Shudras are created from his legs. Brahmanas are especially meant for austerity, learning, and knowledge, and are averse to all kinds of sense gratification. So these, of course, Sudharmas, we see that they're in place to elevate the conditioned soul, and they can more or less, as it's stated in the purport, be widely categorized, or we can look at it from a wider categorization of one occupation being just for sense gratification and the other one being for spiritual activity. So we see this exchange specifically between Swayambhuva Manu and Kardama Muni. They're speaking in such high regard for each other, and they're glorifying each other's position. And this exchange between great personalities, I wanted to read from the purport of one of today's texts, 57. Arjuna, similarly, he glorifies Krishna, of course, upon witnessing the universal form. In Bhagavad Gita, he says that you are the Lord of air, the supreme justice, Yama, the fire, the Lord of rains. You are the moon, and you are the great grandfather. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you again and again. So the principle that's consistent is that when glorification is being offered between personalities, it's always done with proper understanding and viewing the personality on the receiving end, of course, in proper light. This is one of the characteristics of personalities who are properly situated. They don't speak whimsically, and this glorification that is offered isn't just for the sake of just pacifying or misusing glorification as a means to maybe carry out some sort of duplicitous activity. This was a point that was made by Chandanacharya Prabhu, I believe. He gave class on text 33, speaking about how the quality of a leader is that they don't misuse this glorification. So none of the senses are used in a whimsical manner. Is one of the major points. One of the points I was trying to drive home. We see with the nectar of instruction, the very first verse in there is, I don't know why I'm messing up the Sanskrit right now. Vacho vegam manasaf krula vegam jiva vegam udara pasta vegam etan vegam sarvam apimam prativim sashashat. So of course, one who's controlled tongue, belly, genitals, we understand that they're eligible to make disciples around the world, which of course is the position of the spiritual master. So this is a completely different level of glorification if you look at, in comparison to how karmis, for example, will speak such high words or speak to each other when they're glorifying one another. This I specifically thought about because I know we're getting, at least Ali and Chandan Acharya Prabhu are running this Instagram channel. And of course, at least for myself, of course I used to use Instagram, I guess, before joining. So I kind of was unfortunately reminded. It's a terrible platform to be on, actually, because you have unqualified people who are seeking the validation of other unqualified people. It's just the whole crux of the platform. You see people who are like trying to advertise that they're living happier lives than they actually are, and it's not a lot of what you generally will see on social media. I mean, what to speak of like AI nowadays, but like it's not real. The pictures and the persona that people are trying to create online, it's all created. Of course, it's like another manifestation, I guess, of just this false ego. And then like inside of that, there's just another false idea that people are trying to sell. You'll see comments like, for example, like, oh, like you dropped this king, and then it'll be like an emoji with like a crown and like glorification of somebody, like saying he's a king. Or like you'll see women saying to each other like, oh yes, queen, and they're calling each other like kings and queens, but they're like the least qualified people like like ever. Or like, for example, another unfortunately popular platform is like OnlyFans. You see like people who like unfortunately use this platform. They subscribe to all these different models and whatnot. The funny thing is, when at least like you come in to Krishna consciousness, this aspect of like culture, for example, worshiping the dust of the lotus feet, the Vaishnav, and taking remnants. I know this was a point that Guru Maharaj was making in a lecture I referenced before about how it takes such like it takes a level of humility to do this, of course. But it's like so many of these different things. When you look at it from a Krishna conscious perspective, we can see the activity in proper light, because you want to be, of course. We see devotees aspire to be situated at the lotus feet of the Lord. Whereas, like, for example, on OnlyFans, people shop for like the bath water that might have like that a model might have used, and it's like when you look at it, it's like it's completely different, like viewpoint. For example, and this is ultimately a result of not having the senses purified. When we don't have a proper object of worship, people opt to worship other conditioned souls who are just as conditioned as themselves. And this propensity to serve and worship is completely and totally misguided. So we understand, of course, that glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and of His devotees is the topmost perfection of this speech capability that we have. The whole Srimad Bhagavatam, of course, we understand is glorification of Krishna. And as I said, it's not to be done for the sake of cheating oneself or cheating others, but for, of course, ultimately for Krishna's pleasure. So in relation to that, people who, that's right, people who have misused this glorification, as we've seen in, I didn't read this, I know that Mahot Prabhu had referenced it in class. I think it was from the Garga Samhita, how Kamsa, upon meeting Parshuram, he's very submissive to him, and it was, I don't remember all the details of this pastime. I know that he was quite submissive to him. He offers some prayers. Parshuram challenges him to be able to string this bow. He does it successfully, with ease, and Parshuram gives him this bow, but we don't see him using what he received from the Supreme Personality of Godhead as a means for engaging in devotional service. He uses it for his own sense gratification. So that's another key difference between how the conditioned soul uses what is provided by the Lord as opposed to the devotees. Another thing that had came to mind, I was hesitant to bring this one up, but if you look at this duplicitous activity that you'll see, for example, with some people on Sankirtan, they might falsely glorify, for example, devotees for like activities that they're engaging in Sankirtan. But then when you ask them to facilitate you or to take books home, then all of a sudden it's you're doing the topmost thing, but I just don't want you to do it here. Or, yeah, this is very nice what you're doing, but yeah, you can definitely stay in my home, just not today. So it's like okay, so I really appreciate you, but I'm just not going to show that appreciation. It's just like, so it's false actually. Maybe because they don't want to be disrespectful to a devotee, or maybe they just really don't care. That they just don't want to actually offer that facility. But this glorification that they offer is ultimately it's not real. It's false. Is a larger point that I'm trying to bring up. So we see ultimately that the extent to which we can actually properly glorify Krishna and his devotees is also very closely correlated to how purified the senses are. If we don't glorify Krishna, if we don't hear about his pastimes, if we don't facilitate, if we don't further increase our attraction to hearing and whatnot, then ultimately our mind and senses are going to be pulled towards these different mundane objects of worship, whether it's people on Instagram, athletes, politicians. Of course, the list can go on. There's so many different engagements that of which the conditioned soul can choose and have all these different flavors of Maya. As a result, so we see that that's the perfection of Varnashram, because it perfectly engages this propensity by giving that the jiva opportunity to serve Vishnu. So another point I wanted to touch on in text 23, you can go back to it. This tabhyam rupa vibhaga tabhyam rupa vibhaga bhyam mitunam samapadhyata. The two newly separated bodies, of course, from Lord Brahma, they united together in sexual relation. So samapadhyata, it translates here as perfectly executed. So again, just further driving home that point that the same act when Lord Brahma meditated upon engaging in it in a body that wasn't suitable for this act, then immediately there's condemnation, not maybe condemnation, but there's questioning, like, what's going on here? This isn't the activity of one who's properly situated. But that same act, when it's engaged in, of course, properly for the service of Krishna, then we see that same thing can be deemed perfect. So it's all about this proper consciousness being properly situated, and further on the point of acting within one's position, it's quite difficult. We see, of course, to actually be able to discern, like, what should I do here? How should I engage myself? And how do I, even in devotional service, how do we facilitate our growth and proper cultivation of knowledge and of detachment? There's a verse, Kim karma kim akarmeti kavayopyatra mohita tatte pravakshyami. Do you remember the last two lines? Tatte pravakshyami. I don't remember, but the first two lines at least. That what is action, kim karameng, kim akarameti, what is inaction. Even the intelligent are bewildered on what is to be done or what is not to be done ultimately. So it's better, of course, rather than trying to act on the basis of the senses, to act on the basis of this proper authority, Shabda Brahmana, this transcendental sound vibration that is given from authorized sources. Because otherwise, I mean, especially in this day and age, there's so many activities of which we can engage in. There's so many different ways to just glide down to hell if we just look at what we were doing just before joining Krishna consciousness. I mean, even I went home, or at least I visited family I hadn't visited in like 5 years, going up to Ohio, and it's like you really get especially after reading Prabhupada's books, and you go back into a situation where it's like it's not sattvic at all. You can see very clearly, it's like just the way that karmis live. I mean, not only is it miserable, but it's just like completely and totally sinful. I remember like I after I'd woken up, I had gone through, Mongol Arti more or less, and I was chanting my rounds, and I was outside, and when I came back in later, I think I'd gone on a walk. It's like you just like smell like meat, for example, and there was these plans to go to all these different terrible places, like a casino, and that was like a terrible experience. Just to get there, it was like an hour, and then it was like another hour to find parking, and then you have like 3 people who can't walk. You got to get wheelchairs, and then they can't find how to get to the wheelchair, so they're waiting in the hot parking lot, sweating, frustrated about that. So it's like all this endeavor just to get into a place to sin, and then you finally get there, and it's like you sin. You. Anyways, I took a walk, but like they were in there for like hours. I remember the original plan was just to be there for maybe 3 or 4 hours, but I pretty much ended up spending like so much time just gambling and drinking. And then like the next day, everybody feels terrible. And I'm just like, and this is enjoyment. Like this is like fun. I'm just like thinking, I'm like, so we don't see each other for like 5 years, and like we go and do this, and this is supposed to be like fun. And like we'd only gone because essentially like 2 people wanted to go. Actually, it was like my grandparents, because they hadn't gone out for like X amount of years. Anyways, the whole point is like nobody actually had fun. It was like a complete. It was suffering to get there. It was suffering while we were there, and it was suffering to get back because it was also an hour drive. So, anyways, that's just me maybe oversharing, but I didn't. Anyways, yeah. So I didn't have the most fun there. At least I'll put it simply. But you look at how people like spend their time and like what they do, and they don't have any conception of anything higher. And this was like, again, I'm like it's clearly suffering. Like nobody had fun, but it's like, oh yeah, I'm so glad that we were able to have this time together. It's like, I'm like, how an illusion can we possibly be, So, anyways, I say all that to say that without proper guidance, especially on how to act, how to live our lives, it's like really hopeless. And the scary thing is that when we leave devotional service, we go right back into those exact same situations out of which we came from. So that's also like a great motivating thing, at least secondary motivation. It's like if we're not engaging in devotional service, it's like you're just gonna go back to whatever engagement in mind that you had previously. You just go right back to that and pick up like from where you left off. So, and that's a scary thing. Anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and end there. That's all I have. So if you have questions, comments, corrections, chastisements.
You highlighted this really amazing point in the purport 3:21, 52, that Srila Prabhupada makes, in describing the duty of the king, he says that the Indian civilization on the basis of the 4 varnas and ashrams deteriorated because of dependency on foreigners or those who did not follow the civilization of varnashram.
Yeah.
And that really does like highlight what's the goal of the farm communities eventually. Because if we have to establish varnashram, we're not supposed to be dependent. It's not like we cannot interact. Interaction is different, dependency is different. And that's very specifically said that the Kshatriyas, like Emperor Swayambhu Manu, used to rule the country and ensure that all facilities for spiritual realization were nicely provided. So, things need to be nice. How we can make things and facilities nice for spiritual realization without or gradually decoupling ourselves from dependency on those who are not following the Aryan Varnashram civilization, that's I think that's like the challenge in front of us, and it kind of highlights why or how important it is for the farm communities to move in that direction. Because if we don't, then it will deteriorate. And then it says that then it becomes degraded into the caste system, or I guess in India it got degraded to the caste system, but here we don't have any caste system, so it just degrades into basically just animal life. So that was a very interesting point that Prabhupada, he kind of throws that in there, sort of like in a bit of an unexpected manner. But it's such a profound point that a lot could be spoken about.
Yeah, I remember when we went to New York, I think it was, if it wasn't earlier this year, it was last year. It was me, Prabhu, and Lakshman. We went to Matchless Gifts. It was on, I don't remember exactly what the occasion was. I don't know why I'm forgetting, but anyways, Prabhu was, he gave a class in the morning, and he was speaking on just kind of like if you look at like where the movement has gone today, especially. Ultimately, he was saying that it's this bad association that led to so many people not seriously engaging in devotional service. You look at like if there are people who are joining, like of what quality of people are actually taking it up, you know, and the degradation that we've seen with the movement just within like after Prabhupada left, within such a short span of time, is this over-reliance in seeking, especially I guess not just seeking the association of these materialistic people, but also seeking their validation and whatnot, and not sticking to what Prabhupada gave us ultimately. So, of course, we can see it in society, of course, in civilization, but it also extends, unfortunately, to our own movement. So. Anybody else? Okay, Mataji's. All right. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srimad Prabhupada ki jai.